My dear students of class 9A and 9B, today a new lesson I shall introduce you. The name of the lesson is The Reformation. The Reformation. Here there are some points I am going to explain. Cause, corruption, monarchy, schism and economy. Cause, corruption, monarchy, schism and economy. Now first causes. The Reformation is nothing but, my dear students, a movement throughout Europe. What kind of movement? A religious movement. A religious movement which was started by whom? It was started by Martin Luther, the eminent professor of Wittenberg University of Germany. He started the Reformation movement throughout Europe. Now why did he start the Reformation movement? What was the reason he started the Reformation movement? It was started with a view to make the church understand its drawbacks, because church was utilizing its enormous powers by misguiding the common people. The common people were forced to abide by the rules and regulations of the church. They did not want to follow, but they were forced to do so. Because during that period, the concept of Renaissance rebirth could not make the people understand and make the people aware of their rights and privileges. That's why people were in the dark. They could not come out of the golden prison of the church. Now question is, what were the causes of the Reformation movement? What were the causes of the Reformation movement? The first point I discussed, first cause, the influence of the Catholic Church and malpractices of the Catholic Church against the common people. The common people had no right to open their mouths. They had no right to give any opinion against the supreme authority of the church. Another thing is that the Catholic Church was misusing its powers. The Catholic Church made huge wealth at the cost of common people. All the properties and lands were declared to be the lands of the church, and Pope, who was his head, had made him rich, one of the richest persons of Europe. That's why, my dear students, the eminent professor of Wittenberg University of Germany, Martin Luther, started the Reformation movement. As a result of it, the Catholic Church was divided into two groups, the Catholics and the Protestants. Martin Luther belonged to Protestant groups. He started the Protestant movement against the Catholic Church and the conservative Catholic Church and its Pope were asked to change the former system, and people, on being inspired by the ideals of the concept of Renaissance learning, now they decline to accept the supreme authority of the Catholic Church and its head Pope. On the contrary, the people, on being learned right and wrong things, positive and negative things, all they meant, they described their inefficiencies. Once upon a time, they showed their inefficiency. They could not convert themselves to be an aggressor against the aggressive attitudes of the church and its head Pope. But ultimately, they all became aggressors. They all became aggressors, and ultimately, they all decided to maintain a strong life. They led a strong life, and ultimately, the whole society came under their control, especially the rich people. All the rich people, the rich people decided to help the needy people, the common people, because the common people had no right to open their mouth. But due to the Renaissance age and due to the Reformation movement, now the rich people encourage them. Not only the rich people, but also the educated people. The educated people, scholars, by writing their books, they all encourage them. By conducting seminars and meetings, they encourage them by deliberating speeches. So, on hearing them, common people realized their drawbacks. Common people felt that it was not possible to them to accept the supreme authority of the Pope and Catholic Church, because they all were under dark. They all were influenced by the church. That's why they must come out of this restricted zone and must protest against it. Besides, some points also are there, that is corruption. What type of corruption? The Catholic Church, were selling indulgence certificates. The Catholic Church sold indulgence certificates for the sinners, those who committed murder, those who committed offenses. In order to reduce their offenses, in order to make them free of all sins, they purchased indulgence certificates from the Catholic Church, and the Pope sold it to them and made huge wealth, huge money. Besides, some popes, clergymen, they also sold the posts to the rich people. Rich people wanted to be clergymen, wanted to be Pope of the Catholic Church. So by offering huge amount of money to them, they would become a Pope, they would become clergymen. So this kind of wrong practices and corruptions in the church forced the Protestant reformer Martin Luther, forced him to start the Reformation movement against the malpractices of the Catholic Church. And ultimately what happened? They all were determined to stop this act of misery of the Catholic Church. So the church became divided into two groups, the Catholic, Roman Catholic, and Protestant. And afterwards, the rise of power of monarchy, at the end, with the advent of the new era under the Protestant reformers Martin Luther, the rulers also ignored the role of the Catholic Church, the role of the Pope, and also they broke its universal authority. And these rulers played an important role in choosing the Pope. And now, next point, schism. What is schism? Schism is the greatest blow to the church. Occurred in the year 1378. And Italian Cardinal Urban VI, who was an Italian cardinal, was elected as the Pope, and then he proved to be ill-tempered and ineffective. Hence, Clement VII became Clement VII, a French cardinal, was elected as the rival Pope at Avignon. Pope Urban VI refused to step down, and hence the church had two popes. This was known as the Great Schism. In a church there are two popes. What is this? It is never it had happened. In a church there would be two popes. How did the people agree to accept them to be their popes? This new sensation created a new atmosphere throughout the whole Europe, and this is known as Great Schism. Many lost respect for the church entirely and began to search for other means to find religious solace. And this schism finally collapsed, ended in 1415 CE, my dear students. And apart from this, the people wanted to see only one pope, not two, in the church. That's why when the Council of Constance secured the resignation of the two popes, it ensured the legitimacy of the Roman Catholic Church by electing only one pope, Pope Martin. And next, economic conditions of the country. Economic conditions of the country. What was the economic condition of the country during that period when the Protestant movement started against the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church and the rise of monarchy also encouraged the common people and also ignored the influence of the Roman Catholic Church, and Christianity and church was divided into two groups, the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestants. During that time, what was about the condition of the country, economic condition of the conditions of Europe? The church had gathered enormous wealth, as I mentioned earlier. The church utilized the wealth of the common people. It declared all the lands to be the lands of the church. So common people, they all became landless people. They had no right to utilize their lands. So they all became landless people and dependent on the church. Church gave them works as laborer, and they were paid as they were provided with meals for they were provided 2 meals a day, but they were not offered any amount of money, but they all became landless people. So this enormous wealth which was made by the church and its pope, common people lived a very miserable life. Their condition had become very deplorable during that age. So the church levied, on the contrary, the church levied taxes on them, taxes on people, and gradually levied taxes on those people who were traders. They somehow managed their earnings by way of making trade. The church levied taxes on them. Gradually, the new inventions and discoveries changed the attitude of several people towards the church, and the bankers, the merchants, the traders, the kings, they all became rich and prosperous through their own efforts, by means of their own efforts. And now they refused to be dominated by the church. These reduced the influence of the church and the economic conditions of the country. People became rich, prosperous, wealthy, self-sufficient by refusing the influence of the Roman Catholic Church. Now the spread of education, my dear students, next one. During that age, monarchy played an important role. The kings ignored the influence of the church and its head pope, and ultimately they strongly supported the rich traders, rich people, and was determined to help them in all their dangers, in all their difficulties, And what was the intention of the king? To rule them. That's why the kings ignored the influence of the church. And next one, the spread of education. Renaissance led to the growth of the spirit of inquiry. People began to think freely. People became rational. They now came to know to differentiate between right things and wrong things, negative things and positive things, and developed a scientific approach in dealing with things. Not only that, the writings of eminent scholars also encouraged them. Naturally, they threw challenges towards the Orthodox Church, and ultimately their teachings of the Catholic Church, whatever they learned from the Catholic Church, they ignored it. And some scholars, eminent reformers, they encouraged the common people. For example, Erasmus, a Dutch scholar, and Martin Luther, the German reformer. I mentioned his name earlier. They all exposed the evil practices of the church through their writings, and especially Dutch scholar Erasmus wrote a famous book, The Praise of Folly. In his famous book, he explained in detailed form about the miserable condition of the people before the Renaissance age, and during Renaissance age, what they would do, what should be their first and foremost duty, and how would they gain back their former prestige, and how would they establish themselves to be rich men, and how would they be self-sufficient. They in his famous book, Erasmus wrote it in detailed form. By reading these books, people and the scholars all were influenced and encouraged the whole society to be self-sufficient and to make them free of all bondages and to make them free of all obstacles. Up to this, my dear students. Thank you.